Welcome to All Things Moore County, Moore County's weekly radio show highlighting the many facets of the Sandhills. That includes real estate, lifestyle, community and neighborhoods. And now from 4 Properties, here's your host, Bill Sahadi.
Good morning and welcome to the talk show All Things Moore County. And Dorothy, you can pretty much predict the calendar by my next guest.
Yes.
Our guest this week is Towanna Dixon. She is the director of the Board of Elections here in Moore County. She has been, since 2017 in Hoke County, she was the director there, and she's been the director of the Board of Elections here in Moore County for the last 2+ years. And it seems like presidential elections draw a ton more attention than some of the midterms that we have. And Towanna is here to, I think, hopefully clarify some of the information about voting that is out there, because Towanna, I'll tell you as a layman, it's confusing to me. There's information overload. I don't know anymore what's accurate and what's not accurate. And if it's not coming from you, I basically don't pay attention to it, right? I mean, I don't. And you've been a terrific communicator. You probably send more emails out in this time period than anyone I know ever.
Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning. How
Good,
are you?
Good. Thanks for coming in. And your calm demeanor is reassuring to me. I don't know if you're as calm on the inside, but you're in the middle of a public information campaign that it's intense, isn't it?
It is, yes. And it's always good to stay calm.
Yeah.
Always good to keep thinking.
Yeah.
So during this time of year, I do my very best to put information out. My goal was that I didn't want to be scatterbrained like I was in 2020. I think that was a hard time for myself. And so this year, I made it my purpose to make sure that the voters would have good information, that those that were on my emailing list could have good information, so that we can combat anything and everything that will come at a voter to make them feel intimidated about the voting process, so that they could be armed and ready, so that when voting came, that they would know what to do or what not to do when that time frame came.
The logistics of this election and the options that people have with early voting, the locations, the ID regulations, it will confuse a lot of people. I mean, I'm just going to vote on Election Day. I have a photo ID. I've been registered. I know where to go. So for me, it's easy, but I don't know that it's so easy for so many people.
And it isn't, because during this time year, you have a lot of people who are moving into the county, especially military, and they're really interested in wanting to vote. And so, you have to deal with the issue of the backlog with DMV and people wanting to update their driver's license and can't get the driver's license updated because getting the appointment is beyond the time frame to get their IDs back to them in time for voting purposes.
Right.
So we were putting information out about getting the photo ID cards that we provide. We were getting that information out. We were getting information out to them about where our office location was and what they needed to do in order to register with us, and just making it as easy as possible. It's amazing the calls that we get, and people was like, I went to DMV, I tried to get registered, I tried to do this, and I couldn't, and what do I need to do? And just telling them to come into the office, register to vote, this is what you need to do. And they was like, that's it? It's that simple? And I'm like, Yes, it's just that simple because you already got enough on your plate. So we just try to make it as easy and simple as possible and not have them to worry about anything else. Because it, like you said, it is information overload. Usually during this time, I don't even watch TV because of
Right.
all the information that's out there.
Right. So as I sit back and I see it, I see you have absentee ballots, you have early voting,
Yeah.
and then you have voting on election day and the requirements of what you need to bring to the precinct where you're voting.
Yes, sir.
Those are the three categories.
Yes, sir. So with the absentee, we got that taken care of. Uh, a lot of our older people are requesting absentee. I don't think they really realize what's involved with the absentee process, where you have to have the two witnesses, and you have to have, or if you can't have the two witnesses, you have to do the notary, and then you have to either have a copy of your ID within the envelope, or you have to do the exception form. And then some of them are actually getting the absentee by mail ballot to the home, and they're like, oh, I didn't know it was so detailed. I might just wait until early voting starts. And I'm like, oh, okay, because they didn't understand how much of that process it takes to do the early voting by mail.
So some of the people that are looking into absentee voting actually live in Moore County and just see that as an option, so they don't have to physically get into a car and go to a poll
Correct.
place.
So, and we actually mailed out 21 plus 100 absentee ballots by mail this past weekend. So they had that option. And then some of them are already ready to vote, but, early voting doesn't start until October 17th. We have the two locations. Some didn't realize that with the two locations, either at the Aberdeen Parks and Rec or at the Agricultural Center up there in Carthage, no matter where you live
Right.
in the county, you can go to it. And some people didn't realize that.
Okay, so Thursday, October 17th is the day in Moore County that starts early voting.
Correct.
And there are two locations
Yes, sir.
and how long will that go on for?
So we start October 17th and we run all the way through November the 2nd.
Okay.
So Monday through Friday, we're open from 8 in the morning to 7:30 that evening. We have the 3 Saturdays where we're open from 8 to 3, and we have one Sunday, which is the 20th, we're open from 11 to 5. So no matter where you live at in the county, you can go to those two early voting sites and be able to vote early.
How confident should voters be that if they do go to early voting, that their votes will be placed, counted, and secure?
Very confident. With us, we put a lot of checks and balances in place to make sure that everything is accounted for. We have an audit process in the morning and in the evening. Myself and another staff member, we actually go there in the morning and help with the setup process in the morning. We actually go there in the evening and help with the shutdown process in the evening. And we physically take everything back to the office ourselves. And we do another audit process when we get back to the office to tabulate all the counts for that day. So for each day, we are verifying the counts on the machines, the ATVs, and everything of that nature every single day, a running tally to make sure that everything balances in the system. So when somebody does come to vote, we know exactly how many people have actually been in that in that facility for each day, so that when the totals actually hit on election day, we know that those totals are actually accurate.
Is it my perception, and is my perception correct, that the entire voting process, not just in Moore County but across the country, has been under attack over the last 8 to 10 years in a way that prior to that, it really never, people just assumed it was fine, it was good, but there seems to be more second guessing from the public, and I'm wondering so my question is there more second guessing from the public, and do you feel a responsibility to be even, are you looking over your shoulder about your processes so that nobody could come in and question the ethical way in which you process the votes?
Now, I do believe that there is a lot more second guessing. For North Carolina, we do have more of a transparency policy.
Uh-huh.
With the new laws that have come out, there have been more with observers coming into the polling places, looking at our processes, seeing what we're actually doing. I think that does help. For us, we do have an open door policy, and this is across North Carolina and all 100 counties, where anybody that is a voter, a citizen, can come in and look at any of our processes when it comes to how we do our absentee by mail process, when it comes to getting information about early voting. Anybody can have access to that. I think slowly but surely, and here in North Carolina, I can't speak for other states because it's funny when you listen to someone that's from a different state and they kind of do tell you how a different state does it. I can see why sometimes they're still skeptical because of how another state does it. Only thing I can tell them is, you need to come and see how we do it here.
Mm-hmm.
Is the fact that um, it is weird how they do it, but it's just the fact that you can see what we're doing. We invite people to come and see what we're doing so they can learn. And when we do make mistakes, because we are human, we do put it out there. We do tell people, okay, this mistake was caught, and this is the processes that we're putting in place to correct it.
Right.
And so that they know that we are tweaking ourselves each and every single time that a mistake is put out there, so that we can be better each and every time election comes around.
You mentioned new laws that had been put in place. Can you tell me what those laws are?
So
that are,
Senate Bill 747, that was a huge law. It increased the observers coming into polling places and election day sites. So each political party that's on a ballot, they're allowed to have at least 2 observers and 1 at-large observer within a polling place or an early voting site. So here you have the Democratic Party, the Republican Party, we got a Green Party, we got the Constitution Party, I think. So it's almost like you're having like almost 8 to 10 observers from in a location that's able to see how our poll workers are trained and how we handle ourselves. They're able to observe. They're able to now get up and basically float around and observe how we do our curbside, how we handle situations at the help desk, and those are usually our problem. That's the problem area. If it's like a address situation, or if we can't find somebody in the computer, how do we handle those situations?
right.
So that law allowed observers to have more of a wider access to the polling place location than it did before.
Okay. With the different political parties that have the ability to come in and do some oversight, are all the parties working with the same benchmark? In other words, is there consistency, or does each party have a different set of standards as to what they're looking for?
It's hard to determine what they're looking for because each party they govern how they train their observers. Now, as you know, like you said, I send out information to the parties about what they should be training their observers with.
Yeah.
I never want to get involved in training their observers because I don't want them to think that I'm being partial or that I'm withholding something
Right.
or making it seem like I only gave them but so much information and they find out something else. But I give them information that the state gives me, PowerPoints, presentation, videos about this is how you should be training your observers. Now, if they use the information, that's all well and good. And if they don't have to. One thing I have noticed that a lot of times the observers, they do come in and a lot of times they don't know what they're looking for, but we still provide information on the processes. Okay, when it comes to curbside, this is what you should be looking for according to the law. And so that way, at least the observer can kind of see what it is that they're supposed to be looking for to see if we are not or if we're misrepresenting the law in any type of way. Um, Sometimes the observers, they don't particularly care to observe anymore. And we always say, well, you know what? If you really want to see if we are really violating the law, how about become a poll worker? And we do take a lot of observers that way as well.
So, yeah,
So
it's part of your recruiting.
that's part of my recruiting. It is. So, and then they really do learn it that way best, seeing what we do and how we go about it.
Right.
So I
So it seems to me like your process is an open book,
it is.
and there's transparency.
Yes, sir.
But with the new laws in place and the overseers who come in your opinion, are they reassuring voters about the process, or are they sowing seeds of doubt?
I think in some ways they're reassuring the voters, and then sometimes because they may not know, they can be sowing seeds of doubt. I did have a situation not too long ago where I had a gentleman who had called, and he was checking on his family, making sure that they were still on the voter rolls, and I was kind of curious.
Yeah.
And I asked him why, and he said, well, you know, I had received a call that said that we were purging people from the records, and I was like, and I said, wait, you know, I'm in charge of these records. We don't purge anybody from the records. I said, unless during this time frame, unless it's a deceased voter or someone who
Right.
had been convicted of a felon. I said, within so many months of the election, that's the only way a voter comes off.
Right.
And so that kind of was disheartening to hear that someone would kind of tell him
Right.
that he felt like he needed a check. And he was a very avid voter. And so sometimes people will say stuff to get people stirred, but you're getting them stirred in the wrong way.
Right.
Yes, you want people to come out to vote, but you shouldn't cause them to come out to vote because they're scared or they're thinking that you're trying to take their vote away. So that's things that I don't like.
Our guest is Towanna Dixon. She's the director of the Board of Elections, discussing all the aspects of early voting, absentee voting, and voting on November the 5th. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our second set of All Things Moore County. Our guest is Towanna Dixon. She is the director of the Board of Elections here in Moore County. And we are talking about early voting, absentee voting, voting on Election Day, which is Tuesday, November the 5th. Some dates that are really important to know. Early voting in North Carolina starts on the 17th of October, and there are two locations, the Moore County Ag Center at 707 Pinehurst Avenue and the Aberdeen Recreation Center at 301 Lake Park Crossing in Aberdeen. And in listening to you calmly going through all the logistics that you have to face, I get the impression that if early voting is easier, more stress-free than absentee voting, especially if the people who are contemplating absentee voting reside in Moore County.
Yes. So for early voting, it's a smoother process because for each location, we will have plenty of check-ins for people to come in to check in. If you've had an address change anywhere within the county, we are able to check you in, do an update with the address change.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have all the ballots available at that site, you're going to get the correct ballot once we update your address within that precinct for that location.
Mm-hmm.
The only issue that you will probably see is just that person voting their ballot because it's going to be a lengthy ballot. It is a double-sided ballot. But checking in get going through the process. It's going to be very pain-free.
Uh-huh.
When it comes to showing your ID, it's not that hard. I know there was one time there was confusion where people thought they had to have just a special ID
Mm-hmm.
to vote, but it's not that. That's not the case. You can have your driver's license, a North Carolina ID card, your military card, veterans ID card. There's different cards that you can use to show as proof of ID. Your address, because this is very important, because this is one thing that has scared a lot of voters. The address on the card does not have to match the address in where you live.
Oh,
It's just we're using the picture to see if there is a resemblance of the person that is standing in front of us.
so no matter which form of ID you use, it's imperative that there be a photo on the card. If there's no photo, what happens?
So then what we do is we'll still allow you to vote, and it's a provisional. You have the opportunity to actually go to one of our main office to get a photo ID card made because we need to have a picture resemblance of you. This is to make sure that somebody is not trying to vote in your stead. So
Okay, but that's not at the site of the voting.
no, it's not at the site of the voting. And the only reason why we were thinking about putting a photo ID machine at the location, it needs a secure internet connection, and sometimes the internet connection can fail, and it has to be able to connect.
Mm-hmm.
And so we don't want it. Sometimes it cuts up, and we don't want somebody to be there and not be able to connect. We're looking into that to see if we can make a photo ID card on hand at that moment. If you're a new resident and you missed the voter registration deadline at an early voting site, you can do same-day registration as
You can
well.
do same-day registration.
Yes, sir, at early voting, because the
great.
registration deadline is October the 11th. For anyone who misses the deadline, you can come to a same-day early voting site and do same-day registration. Now, with same-day registration, though, you do need to bring in a picture ID and some type of utility bill, bank statement that has the address in which you live. So if you do it before the registration deadline, you don't have to bring in utility bill or anything because we have enough time to verify the address. If it's after the registration deadline, then you have to bring in a utility bill, a bank statement, something that verifies your address, and a picture ID so that we can use it to verify the address. So we can even register people at that time during early voting as well.
The entire voting process in this country takes on a life of its own that extends for months beyond what a lot of other countries do. It's almost like it's its own lifestyle, and it's getting longer, not shorter, and it's feeling more complicated rather than more simplified.
Yes, it is its own. It's its own personality.
Right.
You're very much so correct because
Right.
we actually started so to get ready for early voting, election day, absentee by mail. We actually started getting ready like the end of August, and then we don't complete it until about November the 15th. It's its own person, all within itself, to get everything ready for this type of election. And then once we're done, then that's when we can breathe a sigh of relief.
Right. How many volunteers do you have under your umbrella that you've trained that are going to be working the early voting election day in Moore County?
So at this minute, we are actually looking at 325.
Wow. And they all have to go through a process of training
Yes.
and all across the country. It's not just in North Carolina, right? It's all a voluntary process.
So, yes, so we have volunteers, but they're actually paid volunteers, though.
Oh.
We pay our poll workers, and so what we've done is we implemented a new program where we actually do a poll worker orientation. where anybody who's interested, they can come in and we give them the gist of what it takes to be a poll worker, what is expected, what's required, what's going to take place, what the pay is going to be for their position, and then they have the option to decide if they want to do it. And we also take students as well. So we also take students. We tell them, and it's paid for our students as well. I'm very grateful for Union Pines. They have been really good with the students out there with our recruitment purposes. I think we just tapped into Pinehurst, Pinecrest, not too long ago
Right.
with getting students. But Union Pines has been really good with the students, and they have been coming back, helping us with our locations, which we have been having a really big need because kids love technology.
Yeah. Right.
They're really good with that,
Yeah.
and so a lot of people are surprised that we actually pay them.
Wow. Do you see a demographic shift in the people who are voting today versus 4 or 8 years ago?
I've actually been quite surprised this election season. I've actually have seen more of the older population kick in more than I've ever had before. I've actually seen
Uh-huh.
the 75 to the 92 gap
Feel increase
increase very dramatically this election season.
more than the newer, first-time voter.
Yes.
I think it's great that the civic generation is increasing their numbers. It's disappointing that first-time voters are not.
Well, usually with the first
Younger
time
voters.
voters, the parents are usually dragging them, and it's usually we have to. I don't think the parents realize the importance of it.
Right.
I don't think they realize the importance of it.
The kids.
The kids,
Right.
they have to be taught.
Right.
But the older ones, they really do realize because they realize not only does it affect them, but it affects their children and their grandchildren. And so I've been really surprised that that age has really kind of like woke up and like, I need to vote. And I'm like, okay. And it's like been a joy to help them get what they need.
Has there been any training with the volunteers to better prepare them for any delays or incidents at the polling places to keep things in an orderly, civilized manner?
Yes. So we had, before anything had started, even with the assassination attempt with Trump, the very first go round,
Uh-huh.
we had already kind of figured that this was going to be a hot election.
Mm-hmm.
We were discussing it with me and my business manager were discussing that we wanted to teach our poll workers about the tone of their voice.
Right.
That's so important because you're going to have people who are going to be angry, who are going to come in with assumptions, and how your tone is going to set the tone and the pace for everything that's going to take place in that polling location.
Right.
And so we were already saying, stick to your job. Just do what it is that you need to do. Still be polite. Still do the requirements of asking them to state their name, their address, ask for their ID, and really keep the conversation brief and keep the flow of traffic moving and not get caught up in any political discussions, not get caught up in any type of arguments or attitudes, because once you do that, you've lost ground.
Right.
And so that was one of our concerns. A lot of poll workers were concerned about their safety, and I'm grateful to my emergency management and my sheriff's department working with me about making sure that we put things in place for safety purposes
Right.
for the polling places and early voting sites as well.
Right. Let's come back in the third set. Towanna Dixon is our guest. She's the director of the Board of Elections, trying to get us all prepared for the logistics of the upcoming national, state, and local elections November the 5th. This is All Things Moore County. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our final set of All Things Moore County, speaking with Towanna Dixon, the Director of the Board of Elections, getting all Moore County residents ready and prepared for the upcoming national, state, and local elections. We've reviewed some of the early voting dates, which start on Thursday, the 17th of October, and they will be the two locations where people can go would be the Moore County Ag Center in Carthage at 707 Pinehurst Avenue, as well as the Aberdeen Recreation Center at 301 Lake Park Crossing. With everything that's on your plate as you move forward, logistics are important. And one of the facets of the logistics that I never thought about was the media at the polling places, or the media at the polling places and the guidelines.
Yes, so I know a lot of times people are excited when they come to vote, and we live in a society where everything is posted to social media.
Right.
Everyone wants to share everything on social media.
Right.
But when it comes to North Carolina and when it comes to the ballot processing, your vote is very private. No one has the right to know how you voted here in North Carolina.
Right.
And so general statute-wise, when it comes to how you voted, no one is allowed to take a picture, including yourself. You're not allowed to take a picture of your ballot and post it to social media. The state board is actually in litigation with someone because this young lady did take a picture of her ballot and how she voted, and she posted it, and the state board did reach out to her to take it down. And so I've dealt with that before when I was in Hope County, people posting their ballots and things of that nature and how they voted. And so that's a thing that's not allowed here. Right. And
did they take the vote away from her? The vote away from her?
I don't think they took the vote away from her. They just wanted her to take her media post down. And even when it comes to you coming to vote and being on your cell phone, no communication, no texting. You may have to briefly look up a candidate to get some information, but we have plenty of sample ballots in our office. Please call. I have plenty of those things that we can send out to any voter that wants to do the research. We don't have any candidate information in our office. I need to stress that. We don't have any candidate information in our office. It wouldn't be fair to do that because, like I said, we are nonpartisan. We wouldn't want to seem like we're favoring one candidate over another.
Right.
People will just have to look online or go through the newspapers for certain candidates. And so if you need a sample ballot, we are more than happy to send that. Sample ballots will be at both of the early voting sites. If you want to just stop by and get a sample ballot before you vote at the early voting site, or even if you just want to pick up one and just keep it until election day, more than welcome to do so.
Yeah.
And so, but when it comes to using your phone for those purposes, it's not allowed, and it will be posted in the sites as well.
Okay. You had a mention of election night and unofficial results.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
So the reason why I wanted to discuss that, because a lot of people think that the absentee by mail ballots don't get counted, or the early voting ballots, early voting doesn't get counted. Everything gets counted that is allowed to get counted. And so when election day ends at 7:30 and the totals come up, those are unofficial results. Mm-hmm. So when 7:30 ends, the first results you will probably see go up will be the absentee by mail results. Those are the first numbers that you're going to see hit
Right.
when you look at the Moore County data on the screen. And then you'll see the early voting totals will accumulate, and then you'll see the precincts come in. Well, what happens is after that, we have 10 days to finalize the results, which is the 15th, which is what we call canvassing.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why is because military has up until the 14th to get their votes in because they're overseas or things of that nature.
Right.
We have provisional votes that we still have to see if they will count, and our board has to approve those votes. Um, you have ballots that will come in on election day up until 7:30, but because we're tallying election day votes, we don't get to tally those last absentee ballots that come in.
Right.
So we still have to tally votes that come in, and so we say those are unofficial results.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times when people see the number changes, they're like, "Well, what happened?" And so that's why I wanted people to know that there's votes that still have to get tallied and still have to be added to the totals. And so they're unofficial results. Official results do not get added until the 15th of November, which is 10 days after the election.
Okay. What about election security?
So for election security, like I said, we have been working really diligently with our sheriff. I'm grateful for Sheriff Fields
Mm-hmm.
and our deputy sheriff Conway and our property, not properties, our security management Brooks. They have been really great in helping me understand Moore County, really good. And so what we do is they get out the information for me to all of our local emergency management
Mm-hmm.
and law enforcement. So they have extra manpower on the streets for me. And so there's more deputies that are out near the polling places. So they know all the polling places locations, all the emergency polling place locations. If there's bad weather, we have a link now that we can put on the website. So if a street becomes impassable because of a fallen tree, I will have a link on the website that will give you an alternative route on how to get to the polling location if you can't. If we need to put a generator at a location, just different things that they've been helping me with.
And that website address?
Oh, it's NC Drive Time.
NC.
I think it's NC Drive Time. It will be on our website. I can get it to you. I can send it to you to make sure.
And your website is elections at Moore County, nc.gov?
Yes.
Okay. So that's where people should go to look.
Yes, sir. If they want to. Oh, yes. Because one thing, I love Moore County. They love to Google, especially the Pinehurst area, where are the polling places for Pinehurst, and that's incorrect.
Okay.
Because there's only one Pinehurst precinct that's named Pinehurst, and that is the town hall.
Okay.
What they need to do is go onto our website, and it will say polling place locations.
Right.
If they put their address in,
Right.
it will give them the specific polling place for their location.
Okay. I've got, we've been talking for a little over 40 minutes. The one takeaway that I have gotten for me, just listening to you, is I'm voting early. I'm not going to put up with the lines on election day. I'm going to go in early and have confidence that the vote will be counted. The process will be more expedient. Whether it's a one-sided or two-sided ballot, it doesn't matter. But it seems to me like people can really make their vote less stressful if they take advantage of the early voting that you are providing for the residents of Moore County.
Yes, and we have curbside too for those that are not able to get out of their car as
Right.
well. And that's offered as well. And some people didn't realize that.
To wrap up, what advice would you like to give to the voters of Moore County as we approach the October 17th early voting day and then the subsequent national voting day on Tuesday, November the 5th?
I just want them to know that everything that I could think of for their well-being,
Yeah.
I've thought of.
Yep.
I want them to know that when they come,
Yeah.
that they don't have to be afraid.
Did it?
They don't have to be afraid.
Okay.
Just have their IDs ready.
Yeah.
Come in and state their name, their address, get their ballot, vote, get their sticker, and be happy that they voted. That's all I want them to worry about. They don't have to worry about anything else.
And one other thing that you said in between the lines, go to your website. Don't go to social media to get information.
Correct. Very much so.
There's so much misinformation, and people tend to live in this soundbite world, and they believe whatever they see on the screen that that's gospel, and in truth, it's not. And they should just contact the board.
Yes.
Towanna, I wish you the very best these next couple of weeks, and I hope you can remain calm and focused and as stress-free as possible. But I think your presentation, your demeanor, your tone, and your tenor is calming, relaxing, and hopefully it will reassure a lot of people who are going to be voting in here in the next couple of weeks.
I hope so too.
Towanna Dixon is our guest. Thank you for coming. This is All Things Moore County. Have a great week.